Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar book review. This is going to be for this book here, which is Avatar The Last Airbender, I Am Aang, the Little Golden Book. So this was announced, I think, at some point last year. Obviously it doesn't get a ton of attention because it's not inherently a book featuring new content. This is a kid's book. It's like 24 pages. The main highlight here is that it basically is a little bit of a kind of recap through art, basic text of Aang's story during ATLA. Very much aimed at kids as being sort of like an introduction to Avatar style book. And in that sense, this book accomplishes exactly what it needs to do. I think for being an actual book suitable for, kids, maybe you feel like they're not ready to watch Avatar yet. This book is a good introduction where it introduces some of the ideas without going into quite some of the kind of moments Avatar kind of can get to. So if you eventually want maybe your kid to watch Avatar, introducing them with this is actually, I think, a pretty good idea. So yeah, let's take a look at this. The creative team, I'll actually just go through it here because it's mentioned here. So I Am Aang, adapted by Mei Nakamura. So that's obviously the idea. It's written by, but it's basically just the show that they cover in the art, text to explain what it is, so it's an adaptation type thing, and then illustrated by Bao Lu. And I think this has definitely been the highlight from when the previews for the book came out. The art is very, very nice. It's got a kind of cutesy, more kind of cartoony kid art style, but it works and it feels sort of unique and perfect for a book like this, and you actually want to see various different scenes from the show done in this art style. Not much to say about the back. It just is giving you an example of other Little Golden books, because it's basically a series of books like this covering a variety of different franchises. As you can see here, there's Garfield on the back, Paw Patrol is that down there, TMNT is up here. So they get different franchises, and this I think is a good idea. They didn't just do screenshots from the show or something like that. No, they got an artist in, and you get basically 24 new pieces of art, the cover, and then there's 23 pages of actual content in the book. So let's go through it. I'm not going to show off every single page, because I think with a book like this, it's very much, people just want to see what's inside of it. And I think this is one where if you're a collector of books, this is definitely worth grabbing, because as you can see from the back, it's only $6, and I think I paid even less than that. I think it was €5 or something like that. It's a relatively cheap book, but it's nice. It is hardcover. It's a weird type of hardcover where you can see it's sort of exposed sort of hardcover, whereas usually you'd think hardcover means the kind of paper over the top is kind of folded over, but it's more kind of exposed, you can see there. So it's a little bit weird the way the kind of binding is done, but it works. It's definitely functional. The hardcover itself kind of opens out, and then the rest of the book has got pretty nice kind of paper. And you can see straight away what you're going for here with the first page. I think this is one of the preview pages shown off, where art is very nice. So there's Aang doing all 4 different elements, and the text, is somewhat basic. I am Aang, I'm only 12 years old, but I can control water, earth, fire, and air. It's called bending, and being able to bend all 4 elements makes me the Avatar. So it's, that's the sort of writing level that you're talking about here. They don't go into massive depth to explain everything. And even though they cover the entire series, it's across 23 pages. So there's a lot of stuff that does ultimately get skipped over. And the focus is obviously very much from Aang's perspective. What is his story? And yeah, they cover stuff what the Avatar is, showing you past lives, Monkey Gyatso kind of being his father figure and stuff like that, running away, getting caught in the ice, being found eventually by Katara and Sokka, becoming friends with them. And it's at this point, there's an example here. They skip from basically the early episodes. They actually show a piece of art from 117, the Northern Air Temple there, Aang with Teo. And they skip around a little bit. They show you Aang training with Paku here. Then they immediately cut to Aang training with Toph. And then they add in here, they do a little bit out of sequence while they're covering Aang learning the other elements. They do cut right to the end of Aang and Zuko training, which is a really nice page. Look at that art. I think that's really, really nice. Ran and Shaw with Zuko and Aang doing the dancing dragon. Super, super nice piece of art there. And I'd love to see Bao Lu do more of this with other art and Little Golden Books as well, regardless of which they do. Um, they cover a little bit like that. You get the fortune teller scene of Aang showing off. There's actually a little shot here of Heibai, so they go back and cover some of the book one stuff. There's another fortune teller shot, Aang fighting the volcano, as we saw in the previews, of course. This page here with these two images, they're included. Then they cut right to the end, and that you do get a line turtle image here, Aang performing energy bending on Ozai. And again, they don't go into particular depth in the story here. Obviously, a lot gets skipped over, a lot of the nuances. They don't really go into the character arcs of other characters because it's obviously Aang focused, but you do get, the scene at the end, Aang and Zuko in front of the crowd, celebrating, and then the final page is, of course, pretty much how the show ends, which is everyone at the Jasmine Dragon, happy in their sort of Earth Kingdom outfits, and I think it does a really good job at kind of doing exactly what you want from a book like this, the audience that this one is aimed at, where for fans like myself, hardcore fans, the art is the highlight here. You get the book for your collection because you want the art. But functionally, what the text is, I suppose, there for, is to be a very basic introduction to Avatar without showing absolutely everything. In that, it skips more than half of the series in terms of episodes, kind of episode references and so on. But it does a pretty good job. And yes, it's basically written. I don't really notice any particular errors. There's little bits and pieces where you feel like you probably could have taken another line to further explain that, but it's fine. For instance, I started with water. First, Katara taught me how to waterbend, then a grumpy old man named Master Master Paku, finished my training. And obviously we know that actually what happened there was Paku did the most of his the middle section of his training, but then he passed Aang back over to Katara to properly finish Aang's training. But that's a fair enough way to summarize it. They at least included the idea that Katara was included in Aang's waterbending training and so on. Obviously there's little bits and pieces Toph really only gets the kind of mention and then art inclusion on a couple of pages, but again, it probably opens up the door to maybe, if this is a success, them doing other ones of these for other characters, do a Zuko version of this book and you get the other side of the story. You could probably do a Katara side of the story, which would be kind of nice. The little options like that, it would actually be kind of cool, and gradually maybe over the course of a couple of books we end up with we actually have an image from this artist from almost every episode. But in that sense, the core review is just that I'm positive on this book because I went in with the right expectations, which is that I wasn't expecting any new content. There's not any new kind of content or details in this book, but I don't think anyone was expecting that. I expected the art to be nice. It is very, very nice and is the highlight of the book. And I think for one of these more basic introductory books aimed at kids, this probably does the job, especially of the newer books, the best possible. Because this is where I'll bring up the other one here. Because, I got a little bit of pushback when I reviewed this book, Aang's Unfreezing Day, the chibi comic, because I gave it a pretty negative review because, and the reason for that was because it is new story content. It's a new story done in the chibi art style. This is not an adaptation for kids of other content. It's brand new content. To understand sort of where we are here, you have to have seen the show already. And so straight away, them trying to tell the most basic story in the world in this book means you've not met my expectations at all. And realistically, anyone getting this book is familiar with Avatar, and so would, I think, also view this as being a massive step down in quality level. And so it's the idea of, understanding what your book is actually trying to do and setting the sort of the tone, the level of the book accordingly. And they got it right here. They knew exactly what they wanted to do here. Whereas, sure, the art style is nice. They got a good artist for the chibi comic, but they really missed the mark in the story content because there was some expectations. And especially because of how long this book took to come out. That added to them and really didn't help their case in this one. Whereas they didn't do either thing. They didn't go crazy, fun, chibi, even if the story's not important, as it's at least doing crazy chibi stuff. They didn't do that. And then, okay, you're taking the story a little bit more normal, seriously, just with the chibi art style. You still didn't do anything particularly of note. There's not really a lot of emotion or interesting dynamics in the book. It's just pages of the characters being there, and they almost don't feel like the characters. That's how basic it gets. Whereas this book, you can actually tell in a way that even though maybe the writer is maybe not going to get a ton of praise for this, this is a good example of this kind of like writing in terms of simplifying the wording down to get across the basics of Avatar and finding the right way to hit on some of the really key notes of Avatar without, getting excessively into the details. And as someone who is a big fan of the lore and stuff like that, this I really like the way it's kind of done here. Like, you could get a little bit like, is that fully correct type thing, but it makes sense. Like, after Prince Zuko and I became friends, he showed me how to firebend. We even learned a special way to firebend from two dragons. So, they don't name the two dragons in this scene and stuff like that. They don't particularly go in depth on the whole philosophy of firebending. They just say it's a special way to firebend. That's fine. And they do get into a little bit of kind of like more of sort of like what the kind of emotion for sort of like Aang is. When I needed to protect others, I was serious and focused. I even saved the whole village from a volcano. With the support of my friends, I felt like I could do anything. We traveled the world and helped people. We have had some full fun while doing it. And like, for instance, how they covered the big debate here with Aang at the end. How does he actually go about defeating Ozai? As the problems got worse, people told me the only way to fix things was to use violence, but I wanted a way to protect the world without hurting anyone. I found the answer from a giant lion turtle who gave me the power to bend energy. It was incredible. And they just explained it that, yeah, I was able to stop Fire Lord Ozai from winning the war. I used energy bending to take his firebending powers away. A very simple, explanation and stuff like that. And the main theme here is just like Aang needed his friends to do it. Being the Avatar isn't easy, but with friends by my side, I know I can do it. And yeah, that's very basic. That's not blowing any hardcore fan away. But that's kind of what you want from this book. It's not what you want from new story content that's adding on to the story that actually has a very interesting premise that they just failed to deliver on completely. So very, very kind of like missed mark here, whereas this to me delivers on kind of what it sets out to do. And because it's, like I said, a cheap book, there's not a lot of page count here, but the art is fantastic. I'd be completely up for more of these because the price means they're just an easy thing to add to the collection. They're, you could easily add that onto your bookshelf because it's not super kind of like thick or anything like that. I'm like very much behind this. And what is interesting is it's a different publisher, but recently a book was listed. It's called Avatar: The Last Airbender Heart of a Hero. Like I said, I think it's by a different publisher. You can see the shape of the book is slightly different. It's more of a bigger square book. I think this one's meant to be like 40 pages, but it looks like it's going to be something similar to I Am Aang, in the sense that it's going to be a kind of like adaptation, kind of like telling for kids of the story. It still feels like it leans in the direction of the kind of I Am Aang stuff with like talking about Aang's heart of a hero, but I assume they'll use that for like all the characters, and there might be a little bit more time to tell the story in a book like that. I believe the listing has been taken down from Edelweiss now because I noticed it wasn't really posted anywhere else. But we'll see that get announced. I think it was a February 2024 book, so it was probably announced a little early, like a few weeks ago. But just keep an eye out for that book if you are like interested in these kind of more kind of different style of books, where most people are familiar with the books that are like, say, the art books or the comics, the different editions of the comics. It's these extra books that like a lot of people tend to sort of forget about, where maybe you see the reveal of the cover and then you forget about it. But this book obviously is out today. So definitely if you're interested in it, pick it up. And like I said, it's pretty cheap. So if you are a collector, why not? The art is very, very nice throughout the whole thing. Like, look at that appa. The style, I think, works really well. It's accurate, but also just has a nice kind of different feel to it, and I think that really stands out with this book. So, you know, high praise. I wouldn't go like overboard with the praise for it, just because, you know, the book is what it is. But it does exactly that, and it does it well, in my opinion, because it's a set format book, being one of these little golden books. This is the amount of pages that they are, and it seems pretty good to me. So in the comments, let me know if you have any questions on this book, or what your thoughts are if you have got the book and have got a chance to go through it yourself. But otherwise, that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.